supposed to give you a 5-minute warning 5 minutes ago. So just to let you know, according to my script. So we're on now. You will be. Test, test. Sibilance. 1, 2. We good? All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Tech Tuesday series. My name is Patrick Devey, and for the past month, I've had the pleasure of being your acting Vice President, Innovation and Strategy. According to the script, I was supposed to warn our guest speakers 5 minutes ago that we are starting in 5 minutes, so we'll go back in time. And welcome. Very happy to see looking like a very engaged group, ready to ask lots of questions, and we're going to have opportunities for you to do that both in person and anonymously using your phone. So be ready for that one as we go through. Micro-credentials, what the heck are they? Why are we here? I'm just going to take you back in time 1 year. A year ago at the President's Breakfast, I don't know if you'll recall, we had a member of RBC. Was it the breakfast or the barbecue? The two kind of merge together for me sometimes. As long as there's bacon, I'm there. It was a member from RBC came to present a report called Humans Wanted. And, okay, good. So at least my memory serves me well. And in that report, and in the presentation, there was talk about one of the big gaps that employers are communicating to us, and that's, amongst other things, the human skills, the soft skills, hence the title, Humans Wanted. There was also the challenge of keeping the workforce up to date, upskilling and reskilling in a way that allows us to move at the pace of work, which is a challenge for higher ed institutions. So out of that presentation and out of follow-up discussions, we embarked on a small little project. It was a collaborative effort between the Center for Continuing and Online Learning, soon to be called AC Online, and academic development to put together a SIP proposal to look at micro-credentialing and what can we do to respond to the findings of reports like that one. And that was one of many different reports that were more or less saying the same thing. World Economic Forum, D2L had a report out as well. There are plenty of reports out that are saying that there is definitely a gap in the industry, and post-secondary institutions are in a tough spot to be agile and stay up to date to keep the workforce trained. So here we are, fast forward almost a year later. The project got kick-started in early June, and then since that time, the results of the learner-driven plan came out. And in the learner-driven plan, 3 particular pillars or topics came up, all under the guise of flexibility. One was scheduling and allowing students and our learners to be able to have a little more say in a flexible schedule. Another was in universal design for learning, a big topic with all kinds of things that we'll be having fun doing in there. And the third was on modular and micro and digital and alternative credentialing. Different ways to appraise the skills and knowledge of individuals that don't necessarily follow our form that we have here in post-secondary institution. So to challenge us, in other words, to change the way that we offer content and appraise the skills and knowledge of learners. And I'm saying learners here in the context of the 18 to 25-year-olds, but also the 25 and up, working, part-time, family at home, other commitments, and do not have the luxury of coming back to school for a year, 2 years, 3 years, let alone 4 years. And what are we doing for that particular population? So out of this project and under the learner-driven plan, our little SIP project kind of got morphed into this larger initiative for the college, of which I'm the executive sponsor for the micro-credential piece. We've got Chris Jensen, your acting senior vice president academic at the back there, taking care of the universal design, and Laura Stanbra, VP Student Services, being the executive sponsor for the scheduling. So our mandate and our hope is to engage the community into the learner-driven plan, and there's these 3 particular themes that we'll be talking about. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing our speakers to talk about what we're doing with regards to micro-credentials, and more importantly, how you might be able to participate in this very exciting initiative. So presenting here today are Jay Smith, project manager for the initiative. Now, Jay has a long history with the Center for Continuing and Online Learning and other initiatives at the college. So this is the initiative that he's been tagged to work on. And we have Jessica DeVries, chair of academic development, who will be the first person to have the luxury to address the crowd. And they'll play tag team. There'll be an opportunity for questions as well. And at any time you need to get up and get refreshments and top up your chili or your butternut squash soup, please go ahead and do so. I'll see you there. All right, Jessica.
Great, thank you, Patrick. And thank you so much to everyone for coming out today for this lunch and for Tech Tuesday. We're thrilled to see so many people are interested in micro-credentials and learning what we're doing through this project. So as Patrick mentioned, my name is Jessica DeVries. I'm the chair of academic development. And my role on this project started about a year, 2 years ago. I was part of the team that drafted the micro-credentials framework, which has formed the basis for our project going forward. So I'm now one of the co-leads, along with Jay, of the project.
And good morning. It's a nice opportunity for me to kind of let some people who might not know what I'm up to, this is what I'm up to. And Patrick might have said that I was tagged to do this. I actually chose this project back in January when I first heard about this project. When I was walking our college through Brightspace with the training team, I was getting tired because Brightspace training was difficult. And I saw this and I got so excited.
And he wanted to work with me.
Of the micro-credentials, and Jess was the first person that we looked to, and it's been a pleasure to work with you, Jess, for the last 3 months. And we know that we said this event was free, and that we gave you food, but we do need something from you. We want to use this as an opportunity to kind of just gather some insight from our attendees on what currently your opinions are on micro-credentials. How would you define a micro-credential? It's an important touch point for us because it's the first time we're talking about this across the college. Most of the conversations have really happened with our working group and behind closed doors, and now we're launching the project to the college. But as we do that, I want to ask you guys, how would you define a micro-credential? And you're going to do that through using your devices. You're going to open up your device and go to a web browser. Any web browser will work. And if you go to slido.com in your web browser, you'll be able to answer that question. How would you define a micro-credential? And at this point, I don't know is an acceptable answer. But please participate, please contribute. So when you go to slido.com, you're going to be prompted to enter an event code on the main page. That event code is T102. T102 is the event code. And in a moment here, we're going to flip it, and we're going to be able to see what you guys are telling us. We're going to give you guys a couple minutes. We're not really going to address these comments unless we get something really, really golden. But at this point, we're really just kind of want to find out how would you define a micro-credential? So can you flip it? How would you describe a micro-credential? Does anyone not have a device and want to participate? Here, Justine. Here you go. It should be loaded up for you. Micro-credentials is a hot topic. I actually had no idea what I was getting myself into. And my first week on the project, we were tagged by the MTCU to provide an inventory of micro-credentials. And then every consecutive week, there's been something new, something exciting, and we're really going to just share with you today what we're up to and where we're going.
Yeah, so these are great. So we're seeing a lot of credits for small learning efforts, for specific learning outcomes, a specialization, specific skill or competency. And this aligns with what we're seeing as well in terms of some of the literature and research around micro-credentials, and that's formed the basis of our project. So we'll continue to leave this open, and this is a great input for us as well as we continue with the project to get this feedback to see what people are thinking of these credentials on this basis. So if you could flip back to the slides.
And so now we've just done our first survey. Thank you.
How do you use this? Wonderful. Okay, so when we started looking at micro-credentials, we saw, as you saw with the feedback that we just collected in Slido, there's a lot of different terms, a lot of different understandings of what micro-credentials are. And we found that there actually is no standard definition of micro-credentials. So we really needed to take a step and define what a micro-credential would be for us for the purposes of being able to move our project forward. So we've defined these three different types of credentials. And you can see by the graphic that these are very interrelated. And so for the purposes of our project, a micro-credential is a certification obtained by mastering certain skills or competencies. These are short in duration, they're competency-based, and they reflect purposeful, non-trivial learning. A digital credential, so this can be a type of micro-credential, but it can also be broader than that. So this is the digital issuance and hosting of a credential. So while it can be a micro-credential, we can also see digital degrees, diplomas. So it's that digital certification. And it has metadata behind it that gives that information about the credential, about the issuer, and about the experiences or activities that led to the issuance of the credential. And then finally, digital badge. So this is probably one of the most common terms in terms of micro-credentials that we see, and probably the one that people are the most familiar with as well. And I think I did see a few badges come up in our Slido responses. But this is the visual representation, so that image that's associated with the micro-credential. And we'll get into it a little bit more in terms of how we've defined these in the scope of our micro-credentials framework in a little bit.
So just to give you some insight on the broader context, what's happening across the province with micro-credentials and digital badging. I can tell you this, for the most part, every single post-secondary institution has been asked the question, what are you doing about micro-credentials and digital badging? And that took place during my first week on the project. Actually, the week before, Patrick and Chris Jensen were asked, maybe it was Claude at that time, were asked for an inventory of what currently exists on our campus, and all Ontario colleges were expected to submit this inventory. And so we scoured our programming and came up with a list of courses that we submitted to the MTCU. And around the same time, the Ontario government came out with their budget for 2019. And within the budget, there was a line item that spoke to micro-credentials being an opportunity to explore, and that funding would be directed towards that. And we're starting to find out more and more from our ministry with respects to what is expected of that, and that's going to be a large part of the project, responding to those needs and requests from MTCU. In the digital credential space, and we also saw a landmark moment by McMaster University, who actually issued their degrees digitally. About 1,000 students in the Faculty of Technology received their diplomas right on their cell phones. And this was landmark because they're the first school to do that in Canada. And on that note, there's a global consortium of post-secondary institutions that are investigating how we can use digital credentials and creating they want to create a platform to issue digital credentials using the blockchain. This is being led by MIT, and Ontario does have a representative on that group. There's 9 organizations that are part of it, and the University of Toronto is representing Ontario and Canada in that initiative. And in the digital badge space, we certainly have many, many examples across the province. Humber College has issued over 1,000 badges for their cannabis training. And as well as Humber College, they have their Revit badges, which are social media manager badges that are designed to be stackable into one another. And really, one of the most exciting opportunities for us on this project is really working with our partners across the province and finding out how we can get involved and really drive the bus. One of the things that I am noticing, 2 years ago I had an opportunity to work for CCUL, and I was on eCampus Ontario projects, and I got to collaborate with 12 different institutions. And I've reached out to every single one of them and had conversations about what they're doing. What I've noticed is that we're really leading the way. We're really leading the way with respects to setting a framework that Jess is going to introduce to you very shortly on our micro-credential initiatives. And it's important to really ask what's happening in industry across the world. Are they recognizing educational credentials? Are they recognizing these digital badges? And one survey that an American survey put on by Northeastern University in Boston asked employers directly that. What weight are you putting on educational credentials as a whole? And the survey was conducted over a 5-year period, and they found that 48% of employers are saying that educational credentials are more valuable now than they were before. And on top of that, 62% of those employers said that they're willing to start recognizing skills and competencies in addition to those diplomas and degrees that we're all so used to. So just to give you a little behind the badge, let's go behind the badge a little bit and see what our learners are going to start having an opportunity to earn here at Algonquin College. We're going to be looking at issuing digital credentials through the form of a digital badge, and these badges have international standards. Every single badge that is issued across the world follows these standards, where it has this exact same set of criteria. It has the name, description, and it speaks to that importance of creating something that is recognized by the employer. And these badges are designed to be shareable so that learners own those and they can share them on their social media platform. So going behind the badge a little bit, we know that there is a wide adoption of this, and now our challenge really is to make those necessary partnerships with industry so that they start to recognize this. And that's actually why we're doing what we're doing, because industry is leading the way with respect to this. We're kind of, I would say, following their lead. We have several examples of industry that are using digital badges to award earners. One of the most popular ones is IBM Skills Academy. They work with post-secondary institutions, and they provide training directly to learners, and they issue badges right from their company. So this is a partnership between post-secondary institutions through the IBM Skills Academy, in particular their career paths, and they're providing training on things like AI, and cloud computing, data analytics, and they're leading the way. Another example that we've actually been able to connect with here at Algonquin College is Salesforce Trailhead. Salesforce is, of course, our CRM tool at the college, and it's a leading CRM tool around the world. It does so much for our business and our operations. And they've issued over 5 million badges through their Trailhead training. Professor Patrick Charlton in the School of Business has been using Trailhead in his classes for the last 2 years now. And we're seeing Trailhead training, and there's a badge-a-thon happening next month, hosted by Applied Research, where students are going to compete in opportunities to earn training for Trailhead. And Trailhead started by issuing badges through setting up their admin portal, as well as for users to use it. And now they've moved more into that soft skills space, and they're offering training on soft skills in addition to how to use their system. And right here in Ottawa, we have Shopify's headquarters, and they recently came out with an open learning program where they are issuing badges for users who are looking to set up a store. And right here on our campus, on Wednesdays, I believe, the manager of the open learning program is going to be in the Dare district, and they're going to be providing training directly to learners on how to set up their stores. And they're offering badges as part of that, and that was a partnership between Shopify and St. Lawrence College. The 2 faculty members from St. Lawrence worked with Shopify and created this training opportunity for their open learning program. And we also see countless examples across post-secondary institutions. And I just want to share one with you today, a pan-Canadian micro-credential that's being led by Polytechnics Canada, which is a consortium of 13 polytechnic schools, which Algonquin College is a partner in. And they're looking to create a portable micro-credential that can be transferred across institutions in conflict management. And Algonquin College is a part of that initiative.
Great. So that brings us to Algonquin's approach to micro-credentials. And as Jay mentioned, we're seeing a proliferation of micro-credentials and badges throughout industry and a number of post-secondary education institutions which are trying to figure it out for themselves. And while we have standards in terms of what a badge details, what we don't have a common understanding of or a common approach to across the industry and across post-secondary is the framework for the academic component, or what constitutes the content for a micro-credential. So this really drove the development of our micro-credentials framework at Algonquin. And this was launched about 2 years ago as an attempt to situate the research and literature around micro-credentials, including the industry demand, in the context of the credentials that we already offer at the college. It also takes into consideration Algonquin's strategic goal of being a leader in personalized learning within the province. So one of the challenges with micro-credentialing is determining how it fits within the context of our other academic offerings, whether those be non-credit or credit-based. So what we did with the micro-credentials framework was start with our guiding documents in terms of what provides the framework for those types of credentials. So Ontario, through the Ministry of Training, Colleges and Universities, has the Ontario Qualifications Framework, which sets the standards for credentials offered by all colleges and universities within the province. We also used our internal policy on college credentials, which speaks to our non-credit offerings as well. So the OQF defines all of our credentials from apprenticeships, certificates, all the way up to PhDs across a number of categories, including duration, admissions, and the expected depth and breadth of knowledge that graduates would have upon completing that specific credential. And the knowledge base for the credentials is situated across a continuum. So from what's expected for graduates for completion of specific tasks within defined areas, to all the way up to a PhD where they would be pushing the boundaries and creating new knowledge. So while the provincial framework for micro-credentials and standard definitions don't exist, the OQF and our policy provided a starting point for us defining micro-credentials at the college. And again, it's not our intention to replace our current offerings with micro-credentials, but to see how these offerings fit within the continuum of our other offerings and our other programs.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm just wondering if they, like we were looking about how they fit in, I'm wondering, sort of taking it a level lower, would we see micro-credentials on transcripts, or would they even supplant transcripts?
So that's a good question. Yeah, sorry. So the question was, would we see micro-credentials on transcripts or supplanting transcripts? And I think that's a good question, and I don't think that we're there yet in terms of being able to define that. There are opportunities for digital credentials, which is another aspect of the project that we're looking at, but we're really in the needs analysis initial stages of the project right now.
Thanks for your question, Michelle. I'm just going to ask that we leave the questions till the end, because we're going to go through our presentation. We'll be done here and very, very soon, and you'll be able to ask as many questions as you like.
Yeah. All right, so picking back up with the framework. So this provided us with the starting point, and based on this, we identified that we already offer credentials that fit within the definitions of micro-credentials. And we defined those as, or reflected on those as our college-approved certificates. So these are 4-credit activities. They provide a level of skills, knowledge, and attitudes. Yeah, that's fine. To allow work in a limited range of activities, and they're typically can be as low as 100 hours. We also saw statements of achievement. So this is the non-credit version, or non-credit offering, and this is typically offered as part of our continuing education programs. And these can be programs or singular courses that provide that distinct training opportunity. So what we were missing was a demonstration of a specific skill. And so we've added to the framework the badging opportunity as that validation of a specific skill, knowledge, competency, or participation in an activity or experience. So the table that you see on the screen, this is a condensed version of the framework. The framework itself is quite large and captures a number of different categories, but you can see how we've differentiated these types of credentials along description, or duration and delivery, and our admissions requirements to fit in within both our policy and the OQF. So creating the micro-credentials framework allows the college to diversify its educational programs by providing flexible options to its learners, both as a provider and as a validator of skills. And in order to test the micro-credentials framework, we established, as Patrick mentioned, the micro-credentials and digital credentials project, which was launched in June of 2019. So this is a 2-year SIP-funded project and has also been incorporated as one of the 3 projects for the initial stages of the learner-driven plan. The goal of the project is to design and deliver and evaluate a series of micro-credentials along those 3 types of micro-credentials that we've identified in the framework. So this will provide us with the outcomes to make recommendations to changes to the framework, as long as with a future delivery of micro-credentials, a future strategy for micro-credentials at the college. Okay, thanks. So the micro-credentials project fits well within the learner-driven plan because it aims to provide that personalized and flexible learning opportunities and skills validation to a wide variety of learners. Allowing them to have a pathway and to define their own pathway to meet their educational and employment needs. As we see, the college has a growing number of non-direct students. The micro-credentials may provide that opportunity for them to have the training or reskilling that would meet their employment objectives or to advance within their career. They might have already earned a credential and are not likely to want to be here for a full program of study or a full course. And so this provides them with the opportunity to get that distinct skill that they're looking for, providing that learner-driven approach. Next one. So this provides an overview of our project. And as you can see, we are in phase 1 of the needs analysis. And so we have established a working group that has cross-college representation from faculty, staff, and students. And we've also identified a number of resource people who will bring into the conversation as we're having different discussions on the scope of the project. We're also looking at opportunities to have broader consultation with different groups, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
So I wonder if you are asking, what does a micro-credential actually look like at Algonquin College? And that's really what we wanted to walk away with today, was some understanding of what a micro-credential, what a learner is going to get as they walk away, and how are we going to build these micro-credentials. And we've just landed on these five key areas that we're going to be focused on for all of our development. All of our micro-credentials will be skill-focused. They're going to respond to that request from industry that we build training that meets their demands. And we're going to be really working specifically with industry on the development of our micro-credentials so that they are skills-focused. And they're definitely going to be personalized. We're going to do our best to tailor them to their personal and professional history, and also look for opportunities where possible. This may be very challenging, but this will be one of the outcomes, is can we actually build a micro-credential that can recognize prior learning experiences, and allow for them to really take these credentials and move them from one program to the next. And we're going to make sure that they're on demand, right? That learners have the option to choose when they start and when they end, that they can create their assignments in a self-paced manner, and that there will be flexible face-to-face and online options for our learners. And most importantly, perhaps, is that our micro-credentials will be recognized. They're going to be valid and transferable. They're going to be accepted by our industry partners and potential employers. Last, of course, that they're going to be flexible, which I kind of spoke to and personalized a little bit, but these all kind of mesh together, right? That we want to make sure that we really take that modular approach to designing our courses so that they can be created in shorter durations of time, and within each one of those micro approaches, that it creates opportunities to bridge to a further stackable credential. One of the most exciting pieces that might be an outcome of this project is really looking at specifically how Algonquin College offers our digital diploma, our degrees and our diplomas, and looking at what are the potentials for transforming the way we offer our credentials and making them digital. And there really is, I would say, a revolution taking place in higher education with respects to how we offer credentials, because we're looking at this now. In fact, we've had an institution within Ontario that has done this. And what is Algonquin College going to do? That's something that I've been super excited to ask those questions and be asked those questions and ask those questions of other institutions. What are you going to do? And we've had some discussions in the back of the house, and I think this is one of the unintended outcomes of the project, but time will tell. We have launched a website. We published it today. And we wanted to make sure that you guys had an opportunity to find out more about what we're doing. Maybe you're very interested in what our framework says and how we came across those decisions. You can check out the framework, some information on the project background. You can see who's on the working group and find the member in your area. And you can see how we are making decisions as a working group, and as well as what are some of the key terms that help us really kind of set the tone and create a common nomenclature for this project and for our institution. So I encourage you to check out our website to find out more. It's algonquincollege.com/microcredentials. And there's going to be plenty of opportunities for you to get involved. We're going to do some consultations around campus with some surveys. We want to find out who you think we should be consulting with, what industries need to hear from us, and what industries do we need to hear from. And at some point in the course of the project, everyone is going to have an opportunity to submit a pilot idea, because we're going to be doing 2 rounds of pilots, and you will have an opportunity to submit an idea to us to develop and be evaluated by our working group committee. And Jess and I would be happy to come to any of your staff meetings to share a little bit more about what we're working on and where we're going with this. So if you want to invite us to your staff meeting, we'd be happy to show up. For the duration of the presentation, which is now, it's an opportunity for you guys to ask us questions. So we're going to do questions in 2 ways. One, you can ask questions anonymously through Slido, and we can address them as they come up. Or if you want to raise your hand, we can go around with a mic, and Patrick here is going to lead the way. This is not a planted question, by the way. Are you going to ask a question, or are you saying some closing notes?
No, I'm here to help with
questions.
Yeah, and I'll plant a few, perhaps.
Okay.
So can I just say before we get into it, first of all, thank you. I think that was an excellent presentation. Do you agree? That was a planted question. And I just wanted to mention, I just came back from a talent summit over at Brook Street Hotel. I was part of a panel representing higher ed, and on the panel was also employers. And the challenge essentially that came out of that discussion with the employers that are in the room were, what is Algonquin going to do to be agile, to respond to the needs of industry, and above and beyond what a standard diploma, advanced diploma, certificate, and the other credentials that we offer, which in sometimes are too slow for industry. Now, we have mechanisms, and I reassured them through our PAC, through our quality control. We transform our programs and we update them to match industry, but sometimes it's not quick enough for those high-flying areas where they need help and they need it now, and we're the pipeline for that. So the transcripts is going to be an interesting one, because one of the comments that came out as well is that employers don't necessarily read transcripts anymore. They're more interested in proving that you can do certain things, and especially on the human skills side. They even run algorithms to screen out applicants when you apply. So how do we, and this is the problem statement essentially here, how do we provide learners with a mechanism to promote their skills to potential or current employees above and beyond what our transcripts typically do? And these are some of the opportunities we'll be looking at as part of this project. I'm very interested in the comments and suggestions that you'll have. So, without further ado, if you wanted to use the Slido for the questions, or I saw a couple of hands raised over in this particular area. Hello, Cheryl Fraser.
Did you want to start with one of those? No, go ahead. I think this is really exciting, so kudos to you and your team. What I'm really interested in knowing is, how are we going to get industry to buy into the micro-credential, and does the micro-credential, will that eventually outweigh our current credential system?
Okay, I'm going to answer the first one, and Jess is going to take the second one. And one of the most important things that we're going to do is actually work with industry in developing these credentials. So basing them on their needs more than ours. And so that consultation piece, Patrick spending time today consulting with industry, that is a major part of our project. And we are expecting to roll out some micro-credentials by next year that have been endorsed by industry, that have been, they're going to be a co-creator in the content together. So that's one way that we're going to tackle that challenge.
And to the question about whether these would replace or how they would impact our current offerings, I don't see micro-credentials as replacing our current diploma, advanced diploma degrees, even our college-approved certificate programs. I think this is another opportunity to engage potentially a different type of learner, but also to expand and to diversify our educational offerings. And we might be able to do this in unique ways. So for example, if we have micro-credentials that are credit-bearing, that can be components of a larger diploma or even a degree, and then we can design those so that they stack together, and students can, or learners can either take that specific component that they need to advance their career at that time and build on that to eventually complete the full program.
I'll add that if anything, it augments, because like advanced diplomas, undergraduates, they're common currency. Especially here in Ottawa, we're amongst with the employers that we have here and the employees that we have here in Ottawa, we're amongst the most educated employees out here. So yeah, give yourself a hand for that. So the micro-credentials would be an opportunity to augment, to be ahead of your competition. Especially if you're all competing for the same job. What's going to differentiate you when you all have, an advanced diploma in accounting or a BCom or whatnot? So I agree with Jessica that it's not going to replace. If anything, it's going to augment, because we're in a state of need for constant learning. I think we had a question over on that side over here.
Hi, thanks. Mike, I've thought about this a little bit too much lately. But I'm really pleased at sort of the stuff you've presented today. I also think you've put a lot of thought into it. One of the things that I truly believe is essential to defining a credential is not to define the delivery. I really like the idea of separating what a set of skills are from how you deliver the training to give someone those skills. So a number of your slides talked about duration or delivery, but I think I was getting the impression that mostly you're not thinking about the delivery as the credential, you're thinking about the skills as the credential. What I'd like to suggest is that we do the very same thing to all of our programs. So if you want to stack your micro-credentials together to get computer programmer diploma, then you have to know what the skills are in computer programming diploma. You have to take the larger credential and break it down into a set of skills as well. So like first step in doing that would be to take any program of study, get rid of all the course codes, and just make a list of the skills. I think once you've done that, we're so much farther ahead in terms of being able to define micro-credentials. So I'm wondering if you're thinking along those lines in terms of like not course codes, but skill sets.
Yeah, so for the micro-credentials, definitely around the competency-based. So defining what those specific skills and competencies are that would demonstrate the earning or the achievement of that particular credential. And I think as we've had more discussions through the working group and we've been doing more research, we've actually pulled back in terms of the micro-credentials framework, those hours basis. And so looking more at the flexible delivery, the self-paced delivery, and all of that is facilitated by that competency-based design. In terms of our more traditional programs, we are bound by the Ontario qualifications framework, which does stipulate those hours. But we are seeing some institutions like La Cité move to a competency-based model for their business programs. So I'm not quite familiar. I can't really respond to what our future directions for our existing programs would be, but it's certainly something that we're looking at and driving for the micro-credentials.
Hey there, Jess. Kudos, great presentation. Just a comment and then a question. So just on the Salesforce Trailhead, just an example of its impact. We had students that posted the badges that they secured through the Trailhead to their LinkedIn account. That triggered employers reaching out directly to them, offering them jobs as a result of the badges accumulated, i.e. the competency that they showed in the use of the platform. So I would just hold anybody's comment of foreseeing the future. It's going to be what it's going to be. Just on that, I'm just wondering, what outreach have we had with employers to date, or where are we headed with outreach to employers? Because in the end, it's their valuation of these platforms and these frameworks that's probably going to be critical to its success.
Well, we're in the early stages of outreach with employers, and I would say that the conversations that Patrick's been having with employers is going to be key to really get us going here. We're joining a leadership table through post-secondary youth employment that's focused on post-secondary youth employment through the LEPC at Algonquin College. And we're also consulting with some of the partners that you would have seen on our slides there. We're having conversations through some of our continuing education courses about how we can combine some of the professional certifications along with our credentials. But right now we're in a needs analysis phase, and so we're going to be looking at specifically which employers we should be targeting for our outreach. That's going to be one of the main focuses of our first phase in the project is gathering a list of those industry-specific channels that we want to go through.
It's time for a
Yeah, let's go there. So, are you going to share your slides? Would you like them? We'll put some links in there so that you can access those. Will micro-credentials be recognized by AC if we have our own faculty and staff earn them, i.e. in salary calculations, hiring? we can also be the students. Well, I mean, the learner-driven plan really specifically calls that out. I mean, if you remember the slide that we had on the learner-driven plan that had flexibility at the top, employee excellence is one of those pillars, and we are working with our Center for Organizational Learning to look at opportunities to bring the micro-credentials project through their organization so that our training starts to follow these same approaches, and as well as creating digital credentials or badges that align to those competencies that we expect our COL team to be creating in consultation with us. All right, where are we at? Will vital skills such as collaboration, debate, consensus building, social and environmental impact analysis, for example, be credentialed too? Much of what I'm hearing is focused on an individuals in competitive industry economy-driven environment. Yes.
We're essentially looking for ways to badge our essential employability skills. That's one of the opportunities that we have and a luxury that we have in the college system. The challenge is, how do we appraise them?
Yeah, we can really only speak to broadly what we're hoping to accomplish, and because right now we're setting up the framework and the approval processes for rolling out these micro-credentials. So until we establish that, we're not going to be able to speak directly to exactly what we're doing, but that'll become very clear as we move forward this semester. What is the intention of consultations with faculty? Well, we're starting today. But we expect to have more of a two-way conversation going forward with faculty. We do have 3 faculty members on our working group for the micro-credentials project, and they're going to be helping guide that process that we're setting up for approval of new micro-credentials. So they're also leading the way. So we're not just consulting with faculty, but faculty are also helping lead this initiative through our participation in our working group. What is the process to create a micro-credential, and when will it be available?
That's great. So this is actually one of the goals of the micro-credentials project. And so what our working group is currently doing is establishing the criteria to evaluate the pilot projects. Once we have that criteria, we'll be collecting pilot ideas. We already have received a significant number of them, and for our first stage of the project, we're looking to design and deliver 3 to 5. So we already have more than that, but we also want to look at those in the context of the different types of micro-credentials that we defined in the framework. And then in our next round, we'll be having more of an open call for pilot project ideas, which again, we'll be going through the evaluation criteria that the working group has established or will have established. And once those are selected and designed, we'll be evaluating those as well in terms of making those recommendations for a future strategy.
Any questions from the audience, or we'll just keep going through this list?
We're racing.
I'll never live that down.
Do you think it'd be valuable to bring up micro-credentials at a program advisory committee and have that discussion at the program level, bring that information back to academic development, or is it too soon to do that?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think we're looking for as many opportunities that we can engage a broad range of stakeholders as possible, and certainly to have those broad industry consultations. We'd like to have some surveys and focus groups with employers and bring a range of employers representing different industries together to see how we can create micro-credentials that would fit or be recognized within a broad number of industries. And so if there are opportunities within your program advisory committee meetings, I would say yes, and we would be happy to either join you at that meeting or to discuss the outcomes for future follow-up.
Another one from the board.
Okay. What badge issuing software are you using? I picked this one so I could pass.
Oh. We're using a product right now, testing a product called CanCred. CanCred is a badge issuing software that follows those international standards. They're all pretty similar, with the expectation that a learner receives the same thing no matter what badge issuing software you can do. Of course, the softwares and how you use them are a little bit different. We're testing CanCred. It's a Canadian product, built, I believe, here in built in Ontario. And so we're also going to be looking at testing other products like Credly, which is an American company that is one of the most widely used. But right now, our intentions are to test and pilot and provide a report and a recommendation, which would include a recommendation on badge issuing software and who at the college would actually use this.
Michelle?
Yeah, Michelle.
So, how are we going to price the micro-credentials? I'm assuming we're going to charge people to get them. How will we do that? And is there a danger of being kind of, well, undercut by organizations like edX and Coursera that provide their courses for free?
So again, I think it's a bit early to talk about pricing for our micro-credentials, and we currently offer statements of achievement and college-approved certificates that are, cost recovery. So I think it would depend on the type of credential, how it's delivered, what that costing would look like, whether it's embedded as an experience in a particular program. So I think it'll look different dependent on what it is, and that's part of the discovery that we'll need to do as part of this project. In terms of being undercut by other issuing organizations, I think one of the things that we bring forward as a college is the validator of those skills. And so to have the Algonquin brand associated with the credential, I think that provides a lot of weight for industry recognition compared to some of the free issuing organizations.
And the free issuing organizations, the MOOCs like the edXs and the Udacities, you actually pay if you want that certificate with the logo on it of the issuing institution. Nothing is free.
One of the questions was asked about bringing it to our PACs. Let's say one of our PACs is really keen on this and really would like to push this forward very quickly. Is there an appetite to do that and use that as a pilot?
Yes.
Good answer.
Yes. Thank you, Cheryl.
So the follow-up to that then is, what is your criteria for acceptance of a pilot?
We're going to make that public, right? We'll make it public. Yeah.
And what's the deadline?
We're currently actually creating that criteria with our working group. So we've dissected it, and we're going to be putting it all back together. For faculty or other employees at the college who want to submit a pilot, that would not happen until early next year. Because our first round of pilots, we already have submission ideas that we're going to be working with.
I have a question. Will students, learners, be able to combine a micro-credential from different institutions in some way, and will Algonquin facilitate or recognize those things?
That's a fantastic question. I can tell you that that's the intention. Things like the Pan-Canadian micro-credential that's being created through the Polytechnics group, and I would say that they are expecting that other institutions will recognize this. We're going to test it, and we'll let you know.
And we have some existing examples, not necessarily micro-credentials, but if we look at Ontario Learn, the consortium of 24 public colleges, essentially they share the load in all teaching the courses that lead to a particular credential that's issued by the registering college. So there are some examples in Ontario of that type of collaboration. We got maybe time for one or two more questions.
Can the TAL program or similar become a micro-credential program? We hope so. I mean, we're going to be looking through opportunities through COL and find one area where we can do something.
We got lots of great opportunities in COL. I mean, how do you take all the great programs that are there and actually showcase and what exactly does that mean when hopefully you're not shopping yourself around outside the college, but you want that added to your skills so that if it's leadership training like Ali, if it's tall, what are we doing with that after? And there's an opportunity to leverage into some sort of credential.
How are we tapping into our learners? What do they want and need? Well, we're starting with you. We're starting with you today. We're all learners at the college, and learner consultation is something that is absolutely being demanded of us. So it will be something that we do by asking them what value is this to them. But we already see many examples of learners. Doug shared an example of learners who are posting their badges on LinkedIn. It's that generation that's driving this.
To add to that, we do have a student who's a member of our working group, and so we're trying to get the student input directly through those activities, and then we'll also be looking for other opportunities to engage a broader range of students as well.
So one final question from the guy who's also holding a microphone. Jessica and Jay, I am truly interested and inspired by what I've heard here this afternoon. How do I participate? Not planted whatsoever.
Yeah, so so you're kind of the lead on this project, so you can participate however you'd like. But for everyone else, we are going to be reaching out. Keep an eye out on MyAC for opportunities to participate in focus groups and surveys to gather your feedback. We'll be working through the working group as well, and so you likely have a member on that working group, or at least as a resource person within your area, so to tap into that person as well, and that can bring feedback back into us, back into the working group. So on our website, the membership is displayed, so you can see who from your area would be represented there. And as we've mentioned, we're still in early days, and so we'll be seeking as many opportunities as possible to engage with the broader community.
So before you run off anywhere, please fill out your forms, the evaluation forms, and you can leave them on your desk. I want to take the opportunity to thank Joanne and Kat for setting up the food and organizing. Thank you very much. I want to thank Richard for taking it upon himself to grab a microphone. He can never stay too far away from one. Thank you, Richard. Speaking of microphones, I'd like to thank Steve and even you, Ahmed. Shukran. Thank you for leaving the microphones on, Habibi. Thank you. And of course, thank you to our great presenters here and co-leads on this wonderful and exciting project, Jessica and Jay. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, thank you. Thank you for coming here, because that tells us that there is interest in this particular initiative, that we're hopefully on the right track, and we need you. We need your input. We need your active participation with your staff, with your faculty, your administration, your student. This is a all-hands-on-deck type of initiative that really has the opportunity to be transformative here at the college. And I think that 3 years from now, 5 years from now, if we can do this well, if we can do it right, this is going to be a competitive advantage for us ahead of our 23 other colleges, and most importantly, those private career colleges. So let's eat their lunch. All right? Thank you very much, everyone. No pun intended.